As far as we know, the Taliban accept no kind of political structure for the future. They're against elections. They're against one man, one vote. They're against the law jirga. They have not expressed any kind of inclination to set up a political system. So how are they going to set up a representative system which will satisfy both the Afghan people and the West? This is a very difficult subject because I was certainly spent a lot of time with the Taliban in the 90s when they set up their first government, and they had no idea what to do. All they knew was to reject any system of government that was proposed to them. I'm going to ask Afrasiab, with your knowledge and background and history, how do you see the Taliban actually creating a political structure which would be even remotely acceptable?
Thank you, Ahmad. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll start by saying that as my Afghan friends have shed light on the events of the last few months, of course, the division in the Republican camp in Afghanistan was a weakness of the system, which enabled Taliban to prevail. They have already said that. But I think it was not a bolt from the blue. I believe from the last few years, when the United States of America has redefined its international security strategy and perception, I think it was very clear that their most important focus was on blocking China's expansion into Eurasia. I think that is the key to understand the present situation. And the rest is detail, of course. Russia, China, and Iran, they wanted to see the back of United States from Afghanistan. They would not have cared even if the devil had occupied Afghanistan after American withdrawal. For them, the most important thing was for the American forces to leave. So you see, these were the international factors. And this Doha Agreement, what was the Doha Agreement? Actually, Doha Agreement is the basis of the collapse of state system in Afghanistan. You see, Mr. Khalilzad recognized Taliban in Doha as a state. He was asking them for guarantees for the future. So how can you have two states in one country? Americans withdrew their support from the Republic and they just put their weight on Taliban's side. It was very clear the balance shifted in Taliban's favor. So it was pretty obvious. But you see, the problem is that now Afghanistan is the only country on the planet where there is no even a pretense of a state system. No constitution, no law. You see, this Talib, gun-wielding Talib, is legislature, executive, and judiciary, wherever he stands. And the millions of 35 to 40 millions of Afghans are really at the mercy of this gun-wielding militia. Unfortunately, the international community has put its back on Afghanistan. You see what is happening. Where is UNHCR? Why is UNHCR not recognizing, not registering Afghan refugees in Pakistan? First of all, the gates are blocked. Afghanistan is a huge prison, open prison. You see, this our barbed wire, Pakistani barbed wire, it has not stopped terrorists. Terrorists were going, terrorists were coming, they are going, they are coming. But common Afghans are dying on gates at Torkham and in Chaman. Thousands of them are waiting there. And unfortunately, we have a problem here. You see, Prime Minister Imran Khan said that they can come. He eased certain restrictions. But when Afghans came to the gates, they found out that the Prime Minister's statement really did not count. You see, Mullah Muttaqi met Imran Khan, and Imran Khan promised that this Indian wheat will be crossing through Pakistan at Wagah. But it is not.
It hasn't happened.
It has not happened. Because Imran Khan's statements, you see, they do not have wheat. So there are different power centers here. So Afghans really are facing a very dire situation. And unfortunately, even I don't see UN not active proportionately with the magnitude of the humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan. So it's a very, very serious situation. But I think it's very important for us in Pakistan to change the policy, traditional policy of supporting Taliban, of implementing the strategic depth through Taliban. I think this is going to have fallout for our country, and it's already there. We have seen TTP, we have seen, you see, can we really ask our government? For the last 14 years, they've been saying the TTP was formed by Indian intelligence agency, RAW, and Afghan intelligence, NDS. Now there is no NDS in Afghanistan. How come that thousands of prisoners were released, TTP prisoners were released from Kabul and other prisons? Has anybody explained it? Has anybody asked questions? You see, the Talibanization will come in our country. It is coming, it's already coming. Unfortunately, in Punjab it has a different shape, but it is Talibanization, religious extremism. So I think it's a challenge which needs revisiting policies on the part of all these countries, particularly regional countries, Iran and Pakistan. I think they have not, they're not allowing Afghans to come to their countries. They're not helping Afghans. Humanitarian crisis, I think the humanitarian crisis should be the focus, the first thing. Other things can wait. I mean, the first thing should be how to respond to humanitarian crisis by providing aid, food particularly. Winter has descended on Afghanistan. I think we need to focus on this main issue of humanitarian crisis, and this is how we can go ahead. But I believe the crisis is deepening, and if the international community does not act immediately and with determination, I don't think we can avert a catastrophe in Afghanistan. Thank you.
This may be a very simple question and a stupid question, but I mean, I think many people ask, we have an army of nearly armed forces of perhaps 1 million men, which is not a joke. And 1/3 of the budget or something like that goes on the military. So why is the military not being able to deal with a relatively small guerrilla movement based in Pakistan, which keeps coming over? We built this huge fence at enormous expense to keep out the TTP, and yet they still seem to be coming in. Please, can you answer my stupid question?
No, it's a very intelligent question. But you see, it's very difficult to now explain, because for the last 14 years, we have been hearing that TTP is created by hostile forces. So it's very difficult now to explain, although we have been saying that it was incorrect. We have been saying actually in 2007, TTP came into being, 2007. And I say here, with every responsibility,
recording in progress,
that TTP was also created by our security agencies. And I will explain as to what was the motive. Actually, in 2007, it was a time when it was very clear that the Western forces in Afghanistan are going for a surge. They're going to increase their presence in Afghanistan. And for that matter, Afghan Taliban who were fighting in Afghanistan, they had to come deep into Pakistan. How would they come? Now, it was a very delicate question, complicated question, because if Afghan Taliban would come and they would capture Khyber district, for example, in Pakistan, or Waziristan district, the news media in the world would say, Afghan Taliban have captured Waziristan, and now they will be fighting from Waziristan. It was a very difficult question. So the people in Pakistan, the handlers of Taliban, the Taliban project, which is handled by our intelligence agencies, they sat down and they said, let's create a new body. It was called TTP. So TTP captured 7 districts of FATA and 3 or 4 districts of PATA, Balakan division, and they sort of established their control over this area. And then they invited, Afghan Taliban came and they used this area. So basically Afghan Taliban and TTP were one organization. They are, and they will be one organization. TTP sort of accepts, they pledges allegiance to every Afghan Amir of Taliban. For example, they pledged allegiance to Mullah Omar. Now they have pledged allegiance to Hebatullah Khunzada. So you see, the question is that the handlers of Taliban in Afghanistan, who are here sitting in Pakistan, aren't they supporting, part of them supporting TTP? That's the question, you see. Unfortunately, in Pakistan, what we are seeing, I mean, this TLP, you see, there may be apparently different forces, but there's convergence. There's convergence. Jurisprudential and other sectarian differences can be overcome by political Islam. You see, Mullah Umar was a Hanfi Sunni, and Osama bin Laden was Hanbalite, Imam Hanbal's follower. But you see, they converge. They fought together against the United States. So I think here again in Pakistan, we are facing the rise of political Islam. I mean, Islamist political forces. And TTP is going to be the armed wing of these Islamist forces in Pakistan. And I'm very sorry to say, but I believe they do have some support from within the system of our state. And that is the most dangerous part. Why are we not able to overcome terrorism in the last 2 decades? Because the factories of terrorism are running. You see, in 2014, we passed a National Action Plan. I was in Parliament, I was part of this committee that drafted National Action Plan. But we were not able to implement it because there was no will. Because the Pakistani state would not like to finish terrorism. Had they finished terrorism, Taliban invasion of Afghanistan would not have been possible. You see, so the factories are running, production is going on, and we say, no, we are controlling. But these are all public relations exercises, all these so-called anti-Taliban operations. You see, into 2014, Talibans were not finished. They were pushed into Afghanistan. They went and fought together in Afghanistan. So we are facing a real challenge, and it's very important for Pakistani political leadership to sit and to prepare a real plan for ridding this country of extremism and to implement the 2014 National Action Plan, 20 points of National Action Plan. It was never, you see, implemented. It said there will be no private militias. But there is Taliban militia.